WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American here in Germany today at the Bottle Market 2019 in Bremen, Germany, together with
Larsen from Myken in Norway.
Okay, Myken, that's a new brand. I haven't heard of that before. Tell me a little bit about the history, please.
Oh yes, Myken is, to begin with, it's an island.
Okay.
It's a tiny little island off the northern coast of Norway, so we're in the Arctic basically.
Oh.
And it's, when I say tiny, I mean tiny. It's 2 kilometers long by 400 meters wide, and only 12 people live in that island.
That is tiny. You win.
I do.
All right.
And we make whiskey on that island. Mm-hmm. We've been doing it now for almost 5 years.
All right. Oh.
Which feels like a long time sometimes, but still we're a very, very young distillery, of course.
All right. Now, the first thing I think of Arctic Circle, I think cold, I think winter. How do you manage the wood then?
Well, actually, it's not as cold as you might think because we're so far out into the sea.
Okay.
We're basically surrounded by the Gulf Stream.
Right.
So it's seldom we go below -2 degrees out there.
All right. Very, very good.
But then again, it doesn't get very hot in the summer.
Seldom above 15 degrees Celsius, I would say, in the summer.
That's actually true. Very true.
Okay. We're in northern Germany. We know that problem sometimes as well. Very, very good. So, okay, we have a little bit of the history. What caused someone to have the crazy idea to produce whiskey on that island?
Basically, it started with us falling in love with that little island.
Okay.
And that small community of people living out there.
Yeah.
And it's been sort of teetering on the edge of viability.
Okay, right.
And people are moving away and smaller and smaller. Mm-hmm. So we figured out if we want this to exist as a community and in the future, we need to do something. Yeah. And we knew nothing about fish, which would be the natural thing to do out there. So we eventually settled on whiskey after sitting one evening drinking good Scotch whiskey.
Okay, right.
There are some Scotch whiskies out there, as you may know. Yeah.
Really? There's some bourbon, Irish, and Japanese as well, but who cares?
And we're looking at this bottle, and it was from the west coast of Scotland, and we're talking about how the environment, the Atlantic Ocean splashing over the distillery basically formed that spirit, and we thought, if they can say that, we can say that 10 times over where we are.
Okay, very, very good.
That sort of started the whole idea.
Is it grain to glass? Do you grow your own products then?
We cannot grow the grain out there.
Right.
That would be impossible. But apart from that, that's the only thing we import.
Okay,
we import a malted barley, and then everything else goes on there.
All right, very good. Now tell us a little bit about your core range at the moment. I think I see a couple different bottles here.
To the extent that we can call it a range, we have...
Humble, I like.
This is the very first one that's been available internationally.
Right, okay.
And by internationally, I mean Germany.
Okay.
It's something we call our Hungarian touch.
Oh.
Only 1,200 bottles ever were made. Right. A couple of hundred here in Germany. Mm-hmm. And we call it Hungarian touch because, let's see, 1/3 of the spirit spent 25% of the time in virgin Hungarian oak.
All right.
And that's very potent, very powerful, gives a lot of taste, a lot of color immediately. Mm-hmm. So we had to basically rescue it into some ex-bourbon casks.
And then what size casks are you using then?
Normally 200 liters, but these Hungarian casks were 50 liters, so it makes it even worse, so to speak.
Yeah, the ratio surface then to water ratio, volume ratio is much, much higher. Very, very good. May I ask what the bottle costs?
This one in Germany retails for 69 euros.
Okay, not bad,
with Pink & Nels in Berlin.
Yep, very good.
And he promises me he'll start sending through his web shop eventually as well.
Right,
so you don't have to go to Berlin.
And the second bottle that you have here?
The second one is an even more tiny release.
Okay.
550 bottles only.
Mm-hmm.
It's solely matured in 40-liter sherry casks, ex-sherry casks.
That's even smaller than octave casks. Wow.
Yes, it is. And in addition, it's peated. So it's Norway's very first peated whiskey ever.
Okay.
35 ppm. Mm-hmm. Not much peat on the nose, but once it gets in your mouth, it's sort of an explosion in there.
Yeah. All right, very good.
Very good stuff. It's only 3 years old, but it feels like it's a 7 or 8 year old.
Okay.
But I'm slightly partial, of course.
No, not at all. Now, what is your role in this?
My role was I started out life as a chemistry professor.
Okay.
And I got tired of working with the oil and gas industry. So I figured let's move up the moral ladder, so to speak, and start working with alcohol instead.
Yeah. Some people would disagree with that, but I would definitely agree with what you just said there. Very, very good.
So all the spirit I'm selling now is stuff that I actually made while this was still sort of a part-time thing. Okay, right. Now it's full-time, but this was made 3 or 4 years ago when I still had to have a day job.
Right, very good. Now, what type of stills do you have?
We have stills bought from Hoga in Spain.
Okay, yeah.
And they're both standard pot stills. Right. Mm-hmm. So we don't have
the same one Stouning uses?
Yes, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we have that was sort of part of the reason why we started believing in those stills, because we were tasting what Stauning were.
They have some good stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so talking about Stauning, you have single malt here. Will you go in a different direction, maybe some wheated or some rye?
No,
Okay.
I think we'll stay with the barley single malt, and we can do some maybe blended malts, because
Okay.
we have some colleagues in Norway who also produce that we can share casks with. But
Right.
I think we are going to be specialized enough to stay with our gin and our single malt.
All right, very good. And where can we go online to find more information?
We have a very nice website
Okay.
set up with all the information. For instance, if you go online and search on our website, it's called Myken Destilleri. It's
Okay.
a Norwegian word, but
Yeah.
it's you will search for it on Google and find
Mhm.
it. You find all the nitty-gritty details, all the nerdy details. for
Transparency.
this. All the stuff, how many hours it was fermented, how the number of the casks, and every single date, and almost every time we do
So
anything.
your data sheet is even more extensive than McMurray. Very good.
Yes, it is. A lot more.
Okay, very, very nice. All right, what can we expect in the future then?
I was just talking to Klaus about our next release, which is due to be out in March.
Okay.
And I haven't finalized it yet, but I'm looking at still some small casks.
Yep.
Have been matured a little bit quicker. But now it's going to be both ex-bourbon and ex-sherry. Probably not peated this time, but
Okay.
I think we have some good stuff coming out.
All right, very good. And your plan to conquer the world is to go one country at a time, right?
Yes, we need to do that.
So
And
Norway, Germany, what's next?
we started a little bit on Austria.
Oh, good. Well, makes sense with him, doesn't it?
It does.
Klaus, who also is in Austria.
And then we'll see if we can have our friends in Sweden and Denmark
yeah.
taste a little bit of our stuff.
That's
as we
good.
go
That's
along.
good. All right, very, very good. So, WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American here, finding out that Norway has more than one just distillery. Myken, show the flag, exactly. Not just our ice winter sports Olympics, but rather you have whiskey as well. That's very, very, very great. Thank you very much for this interview, WhiskyJason, together with
Roald Larsen, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.